new CPI series. According to documents released by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, India's revised consumer price index with 2024 as the base year will significantly lower the weight of food and beverages from 45.86% to 36.75%. At the same time, housing will account for a larger share of the CPI basket, along with improved method to measure rent increases. This change is expected to push up measured housing inflation and place upward pressure on headline retail inflation. Why food's high weight in CPI has been a concern. Food items account for a large share of India's consumer price index, meaning sharp swing in food prices often dominate headline inflation, pushing it up or down irrespective of broader price trends. From June 2025, food inflation turned negative with prices consistently lower than a year earlier. This sharply pulled down headline CPI inflation, which fell to an all-time low of 0.25% in October 2025, alongside record low food inflation of -5.02%. Impact of new CPI weights on inflation readings. According to experts, recalculating CPI with new weights but unchanged indices suggest overall CPI could be 20 to 30 basis points higher when food inflation is low. In periods of high food inflation, CPI could be 20 to 30 basis points lower than under the current series. Why RBI has been uneasy with the current CPI? For the Reserve Bank of India, the heavy food weight is problematic because the existing CPI is based on 11-12 consumption patterns, making it outdated and less representative of today's economy. As per Ernst Angel's economic theories, the share of income spent on food declines as income rises. This trend is reflected in recent Indian data. The updated CPI basket draws on the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation 23-24 Household Consumption Expenditure Survey. Rural household food share fell from 52.9% 11-12 to 47.04% of monthly per capita consumption. Urban household food share declined from 42.62% to 39.68%. Falling food shares in household spending underlined why reducing food's weight in the CPI is seen as necessary to make inflation data more stable, current and reflective of actual consumption patterns in India today. Relief for RBI from lower food weight in CPI. The RBI influences inflation mainly by managing demand through interest rates. However, it has limited ability to address supply side shocks in food prices as rate changes cannot quickly alter the supply of vegetables, cereals or other food items. In the past, episodes of high food inflation have kept headline inflation elevated, preventing the RBI from cutting interest rate even when underlying demand conditions were weak. This has complicated monetary policy decision making. Against this backdrop, the Economic Survey 23-24 suggested exploring whether India's inflation targeting should focus on inflation excluding food items. The RBI opposed this idea. Then Governor Shaktikant Das said that while the central bank can look through temporary food inflation, it cannot ignore persistently high food inflation. Current inflation targeting framework. By law, the RBI must target CPI inflation at 4% within a tolerance band of 2 to 6% under the flexible inflation targeting framework. This framework is currently under review with the new target for the next 5 years starting April expected to be announced by March. Most economists expect the FIT framework to be retained in its current form, but changes in CPI composition, especially a lower food weight, could give the RBI greater operational comfort in managing inflation and interest rates. New CPI basket, what is changing? Timeline for the new CPI series. The broad weight of categories in the new CPI basket have been released ahead of the first inflation data under the new series, which will come out on February 12 for January. Detailed item-wise weights will be published before that. Expanded coverage, more items in the basket. The new basket will include 358 items up from 299 earlier, reflecting changes in consumption patterns. Reclassification of categories. The Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation has recognized CPI categories, making one-to-one comparisons with earlier version difficult. For example, education service now carry a 3.33% weight as a stand-alone category, whereas earlier education was a subgroup under miscellaneous with a 4.46% weight. Linking old and new CPI series to ensure continuity, the expert group recommended releasing a linking factor between CPI 2012 and CPI 2024 for all India rural and urban indices with the first CPI 2024 release. Food weight falls, housing gains prominence, while foods weight declines in the new series expected to reduce headline inflation volatility. Housing weight rises sharply from 10.07% to 17.66%. Why housing weight is rising? The increase is driven by expanded coverage to include residential, utilities, water, electricity, gas, other fuels, higher spending on rent per the 23-24. Rural rent share rose to 0.56% from 0.45% in 2011-12. Urban rent share increased to 6.58% from 6.24%. Implication for inflation: lower food weight should reduce volatility in headline CPI. However, the higher housing weight combined with methodological changes such as excluding employer-provided accommodation from rent measurement could push housing inflation higher, adding upward pressure to overall inflation.